This story takes place on an ordinary day in Japan, where Sansui, engrossed in his phone, carelessly crosses the street, oblivious to the traffic signal. Suddenly, a truck collides with Sansui, and amidst the screams of onlookers, his vision fades and his body becomes immobile. When Sansui regains consciousness, he is startled by the face of an elderly man with a long white beard. Sansui, recalling the truck accident, panics and gazes at the old man. To his astonishment, he discovers a city beneath him. The old man instructs Sansui to calm down and addresses him as Lord, revealing that Sansui is now in the presence of a higher power. Sansui is momentarily dumbfounded, remembering his grandmother's advice to never trust anyone claiming to be a lord. The old man, recognizing Sansui's hesitation, recalls a granny who had referred to him as a damn old man in a bitter tone. Sansui realizes that this description could only belong to his grandmother. The Lord explains that Sansui's name, Shirokuro Sansui, sounded outdated and he had not expected it to belong to a young individual like Sansui. Assuming the name belonged to an elderly person, the Lord acted without much thought, ending the life associated with that name. Overwhelmed with remorse for this grave mistake, the Lord expresses deep regret. Sansui, skeptical of the Lord's words, believes that his expression does not align with his statements. To make amends for this terrible error, the Lord offers Sansui the opportunity to travel to another world, granting him powers to ensure he does not meet an untimely demise. Without hesitation and with a gleam in his eyes, Sansui eagerly expresses his desire for power, aspiring to become the strongest in that new world. The Lord wrote a letter and entrusted it to Sansui, instructing him to deliver it to the first person he encounters in the new world. This individual would train Sansui to become the strongest, fulfilling Sansui's desire. However, before Sansui could fully comprehend the Lord's words, he found himself transported to a forest. Sansui tirelessly wandered, calling out, but received no response. Suddenly, a young man appeared on a tree branch. He glanced at Sansui and agreed to guide him to a human village. Recalling the Lord's instructions, Sansui hastily handed the letter to the young man. After reading it, the young man reluctantly nodded and accepted Sansui as his disciple. He introduced himself as Suiboku from the Suiboku school, a wise man. Suiboku warned Sansui that the training would be incredibly challenging, especially for someone seemingly untalented like Sansui. This revelation left Sansui completely shocked, as he did not anticipate such a lengthy journey to become the strongest. Nevertheless, Sansui officially commenced his training with Suiboku. The beginning proved to be more arduous than Sansui had anticipated, as he had to exert himself to keep up with Suiboku's pace. Upon reaching a wooden house, Suiboku handed Sansui a wooden sword to initiate his training. Sansui's training involved practicing sword swings from dawn until sunset. The thought of repeating the same motion every day slightly disheartened Sansui. However, Suiboku reminded him to channel all his strength into the sword, assuring him that persistence would eventually lead him to the pinnacle of power. Thus, Sansui's year-long training journey began. Throughout his training with Suiboku, Sansui realized that becoming strong in this new world was exceedingly difficult and unforgiving. As soon as the sun rose, Sansui would commence his practice, retiring early at night to regain his strength for the following day's training. From early morning until dusk, Sansui dedicated his entire mind to mastering the sword. In the initial days, he experienced intense hunger, but as time went by, the hunger gradually faded away, and he stopped dwelling on it. Suiboku, his mentor, enlightened him about the fact that wise men like his master didn't rely on human food but sustained themselves on CMY. With no other option, Sansui absorbed all the techniques taught by Suiboku, diligently training day after day. As a result, his uniform became worn out, and he switched to wearing a kanashi like Suaoku. Sansui was so immersed in his training that he almost lost track of time. Years flew by in the blink of an eye, yet Sansui didn't feel any closer to Suiboku. One day, while training in the forest, Sansui suddenly sensed a presence entering the woods. Suiboku also felt it, and it seemed like wolves were attacking two vulnerable lives. Upon reaching the scene, they discovered that a pack of wolves had attacked a woman, but miraculously, the newborn baby in her arms was still alive. Sansui swiftly rushed to save the baby. While Suiboku sensed magic within her, he believed that she wouldn't become a sage but would thrive better growing up in human society. Suiboku concluded that Sansui had dedicated enough time and effort over the years to be deemed the strongest, and he entrusted him with the noble responsibility of raising the baby girl as her father. Sansui cradled the baby tenderly, ready to embrace this new life and embark on a fresh chapter. Carrying the baby, Sansui traversed the fields, but the hungry child continued to cry despite his attempts to soothe her. Ahead lay a village where Sansui hoped to find milk, sensing the souls of children there. He accurately located a house where a woman was nursing her own baby. Sansui claimed that his wife had left, leaving behind a newborn who was crying out for milk. The woman sympathized with Sansui's plight as a single father and agreed to nurse the baby. After being fed, the baby ceased crying, and the woman suggested that Sansui head to the capital for better opportunities, considering the lack of job prospects in the village and his young age. Once the baby had her fill, she stopped crying. The woman returned the baby to Sansui and hurried inside to prepare for their journey. Sansui, looking in the direction the woman had indicated and then around the village, felt that everything was new and different. He had never left the forest before and had no understanding of humans or the society of this world. He sighed, but his negative thoughts were dispelled when the baby in his arms suddenly burst into laughter. At the same time, the woman came out of the house and handed Sansui a bag of goat's milk. It was all she had to offer for his journey to the capital with the baby. Sansui thanked her profusely before departing, hoping to one day repay her kindness if she was still alive. Sansui moved swiftly, using the blinking step technique, and as he passed a carriage, he felt someone chasing him from behind. A loud voice demanded that he stop. Sansui immediately halted, still holding the baby. The person who had shouted appeared to be of noble birth and accused Sansui of being a rude commoner for daring to jump onto the roof of her master's carriage. However, upon seeing Sansui with a child, she did not pursue the matter further but insisted that Sansui show a sincere apology to her master inside the carriage. Sansui apologized, admitting his mistake of inadvertently disrupting others' travel. The girl in the carriage cautioned Sansui and then stepped out, surveying his shabby appearance and disheveled hair, deducing that his life was quite unstable. She then offered Sansui a chance to come to her mansion with the condition that if he passed a test, he would be given a job. Sansui immediately agreed, surprised by such an offer. The girl introduced herself as Dewey, a name Sansui had to remember well. Brower, the girl who had just pointed at Sansui, was about to express her disapproval when Dewey cut her off. Dewey was confident about her decision, observing Sansui's hands and remarking that they looked like they had wielded a sword for a lifetime. However, his efforts did not go unnoticed. Brower, curious about Sansui's abilities, questioned him about the monkey, referring to Sansui himself, who lacked magical essence but managed to leap over the carriage roof. Dewey observed Sansui with interest, wondering if he had utilized some rare sorcery. Although Sansui did not understand the nature of their conversation, he knew it was best to remain silent. Sansui recalled the words of Suab Boku, who had once said that while magic was common in this world, not everyone possessed the ability to use it. Only a portion of the population could harness some form of magic, while the rest lacked a magical essence and were unable to cast spells. However, they could still produce similar effects to magic through rituals and ceremonies. Sansui's sage techniques were a similar form of non-magical abilities. The rare sorcery that Dewey and Brower referred to involved techniques that did not rely on magic. Sansui then accompanied Dewey to the capital, sitting outside with the baby. Brower disapproved of Sansui's excited demeanor, dismissing him as an ignorant rustic. However, Dewey saw potential usefulness in Sansui. The carriage eventually stopped at Dewey's mansion, where servants came out to greet them. Sansui's presence puzzled them, as Dewey kept referring to him as the monkey. Dewey instructed the butler to arrange a room for Sansui and the baby. The baby, in Sansui's arms, began crying loudly, but a kind maid helped soothe her. Dewey's father and brother, both emanating the aura of experienced soldiers, warmly welcomed them home.